Hello and welcome in the Acts 1 to 3 Early Leveling Ranger Deadeye build guide. This is the start of my From Zero to MF Hero videos series where I will be covering the progress of my MF build. However, the game is so hard that I will be adding some item rarity gear later after leveling up, so you can treat this video as a normal character early leveling guide. Let's jump straight to the passive tree. Just for the clarification, I will be starting with Lightning Strike skill, but I'm not sure if it will be my final skill. I started with the projectile damage node, then grabbed the Vile Wounds node for increased damage while the enemy is affected by ailments. Then I went the accuracy node up to the Blur notable, which grants 4% increased movement speed. Now, movement speed is extremely important, but even though I didn't take the additional movement speed points here, as this game is extremely challenging at the start, and we want as much damage as possible. Then I took the another projectile damage and accuracy node up to the careful aim. I took so many points near the start first as they don't require me to go through long paths of attribute points without any other bonuses. Next I took the elemental damage path through the harness of the elemental notable. You can also take the lightning penetration node here and then respec it, as we will need a lot of dexterity points to meet the skill gems level progression. I will probably grab this lightning penetration node later on, but I'm not sure which skill I will be using at the later stages. Next I took the elemental damage path through the catalysis notable and then the attack damage node up to the maiming strike notable. Next point is the jewel socket, which I socketed an emerald jewel without spending too much for it. Next I went to the bow damage cluster and took some points there. And then I went to the skill speed node up to the acceleration notable. The dexterity points here I grabbed to meet the skill gem requirements and also to probably allocate some of the critical chance cluster points here and some of the herald damage points later on here. My ascendancy choice is Deadeye, and the first 2 points that I earned and allocated is the Gathering Winds notable. So that's the tree. Feel free to get inspired by it and make your own choices, as there are so many options here that you don't need to copy everything one to one. Now let's see the skill and support gems. My main attack skill for both mapping and single target will be Lightning Strike, supported with the Martial Tempo for more attack speed and Primal Armament for increased elemental damage. The Primal Armament is not available early in the game, so until you get it, I suggest using Lightning Infusion gem instead. I'm not using Scatter Shot for more projectiles because it decreases the damage a lot. In PoE 1 it would be probably a good choice, but this game is extremely hard, so we want as much damage as possible while early leveling. My second skill is Lightning Rod, supported by the Magnified effect for increased area of effect and the Lightning Penetration gem. The Lightning Penetration gem may also not be available early on, so you can use Conduction for chance to shock until you can put your hands on Lightning Penetration. Important thing about the Lightning Rod skill is you don't use it to strictly deal damage. You place it on the ground near the enemies, you can stack it multiple times and then use your main Lightning Strike skill, which has chaining lightning beams, which will then chain with the Lightning Rod. It works really good for rare monsters and bosses, but also helps with clearing the normal monster packs. Especially useful as we're shooting one arrow at a time from our main skill. After I gained 30 spirit from the quest, I started using Herald of Thunder spirit skill, and then after acquiring another 30 spirit into my character, I also use Spirit Dancer. One more important thing that I haven't tested yet is that the base attack tooltip looks interesting, and who knows if people will not use the base attack as well, for example for single target boss attacks. We will see. So this is basically it for the gems for now. Now let's discuss the gear. In the first 3 acts you will drop around 10 plus exalted orbs. Many of the current guides say don't hoard the currency, use it for crafting, and I agree, but in most cases you should use them not for crafting but to actually buy the items from the market. Not straight at the start of the game, but in the Act 2 you will start struggling more with some bosses, and that's the right moment to buy some gear from the trade site. you should be able to get some good gear for each slot for 1x each or cheaper. The most important thing is to find items with high life bonuses, preferably 70 plus life on each item that allows it. Then, of course, you want damage and resistances. You really need a good gear, otherwise you will struggle a lot even with perfect passive tree choices. The important thing is that you can add sockets to the gear with Artificer's Orb and then socket some runes into it, but be aware that the rune cannot be taken away from the item. Another important note is that these Artificer's Orbs are quite rare, so use them wisely. What I do is I make 2 sockets on the bow and put 2 iron runes on it to increase the bow base physical damage. Ideally, you can use other runes on the rest of the gear to increase the resistances, but it's really not that easy to gather these orbs, and you will also replace your gear quite often. So better save some of them for the later stage of the game, like for example for the start of Act 4, aka Act 1 Cruel Difficulty, which I'm in right now, and I don't have those orbs. Quick tip, you can acquire them by using the salvage bench and salvaging items with the sockets, which you can get from the vendors. Speaking of flasks, personally I prefer the mod that gains charges over time. It's especially useful during long boss fights, as it allows you to passively gain the charges without any action required, and this could really be a lifesaver which will help with surviving and dealing this final blow to the boss. Now some additional info. My medallion choice in the Valley of the Titans in Act 2 is the increased charm charges gained, but I think both options are good. My Venom Drought potion choice is the green one for 30% increased elemental ailment threshold. So this is it. The game starts getting harder in Act 2, but then when you gear up wisely, it gets easier in Act 3. Now some final thoughts about the game and my first impressions. There are still a lot of bugs and errors, but it feels great, really challenging and hard, which I like, and the boss fights are great. Super satisfying, and the idea that you need to kill the boss on 1 life makes it feel like you're really completing the game, not just mindlessly grinding it. So really thumbs up for this idea. And now my future plans for the build. My plans for this build are to make it a full Magic Find build, which means stacking as much item rarity gear as possible. We will see if the game won't be too hard for that, or if we need to do a semi-MF build. I can't wait to figure it out. My first unique that I dropped in this game are Overseas Gloves with 49% increased item rarity, which is like a sign for me to make this MF build. Now let's cover one last thing. Let me tell you this. Item rarity in Path of Exile 2 is absolutely insane. Item rarity in PoE 2 is much different than in PoE 1. As the in-game tooltip says, it not only affects the rarity of the items like normal, magic, rare and unique, but also the rarity of all other items that don't have such a rarity, but have their own rarity instead. With this being said, you will drop more better items of every type, including currency, by stacking the item rarity mode. This is really great, as you will not be dropping millions of useless items like in PoE 1, but you will still see these juicy and satisfying nice drops as a MF character. How cool is that? I will be continuing making these videos describing my Magic Find journey in Path of Exile 2, so stay tuned. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos of this new series, which I called From Zero to MF Hero. Thanks for watching, feel free to leave a comment, thumb up and a sub. See you in the next one.